Welcome to Nonprofit Board Training 101. We've trained dozens of boards, our team has at Private Philanthropy, all over the US, and these are the top 7 strategies that we've found to be the most effective in activating and exciting your board so that they can do more for your mission and take some of the staff burden off of the paid team to help advance your mission and, of course, raise more money. All right, strategy number 1, and hopefully this happens a little bit also in the recruitment process, but what we've found is it doesn't often get specifically stated when you're doing an onboarding board, or you're having kind of an initial orientation either with a couple new board members or you're launching a new board, and that is setting the time commitment. So we love to undersell the size of job for the board, and what I mean by that is in our recruitment efforts, we want to make the board seat or the board service sound as easy as possible to convince someone. Say we have a very influential community leader, we're just so excited with the prospect of them serving on our board. So we say, oh yeah, it's going to be barely any time at all. It's just advisory. You don't even have to come to all the meetings. We intentionally undersell this because, oh, if we can just get the Smiths, or if we can just get Betsy, or if we can just get John to serve on our board, he'll connect us to all these people and he's so influential, or whatever it might be. We actually either don't say anything about the time commitment, or worse, we sort of half lie or undersell the amount of time. So what we like to do is, both in the recruitment process and when we sit down for orientation for the first time, is we give them an approximated number of hours. How many hours are they going to have to spend per month or per quarter or whatever? So the expectation is this is about 3 hours a month of service. And we break that down. That includes 1 hour in meetings every month, and then 1 hour in subcommittee, and then 1 hour of community time. So that's just an example. Maybe your split's different, but this is about 3 hours a month. Or say you meet quarterly, it might look different and say, hey, we average about 10 hours a quarter. We average 5 hours a quarter. So we just want to break down the specific number of hours, at least with an approximation. Like this is about what it's going to cost you in terms of time. The next thing we want to do is expectation of meetings. Either we say, oh yeah, you don't have to come to that many meetings. It's like, no, really, we want our board, and the best way to have them engaged is for them to come together. Is it in person? Do they have to attend online? Is it the case that they have to come to 75% of board meetings? They have to attend all of them, or whatever it might be, but let's be very specific. So it's, hey, it's 3 hours a month, but on top of that, you have X number of meetings you have to attend per year. And it's not a bad thing if you end up missing those, but we're just gonna have to rotate your seat so we can find someone who's a little bit more engaged. So the question that we always get following this is, well, that would disqualify several of our board members. They would rotate off. And we would say, yes, it would. And if they're not able to commit the time right now, they're taking up a seat for someone who might be able to. Even if they feel like they're the perfect board member, maybe find a different role. Have them serve on a volunteer fundraising committee, or be on an advisory board, or some other seat. What we can't take up seats of people who aren't going to show up. And the best way to do that is during the recruitment process and during that first day, we say, here's the expectation. It's written into our bylaws, or this is the verbal commitment that you're doing by signing this right here. You're gonna come to this many meetings per year, and you're gonna serve about this many hours per month. Of those hours, the breakdown is something in this range. So it doesn't matter what that is. That could be a lot of hours and a lot of meetings, or barely any, but whichever you're requiring, you just need to state it. You need to state it in advance and make the expectations clear. Usually, people's resentment or frustration does not come with the amount of work that you're giving or not giving to them. It specifically comes from a mismatch of expectations. Best way to avoid that mismatch, just be upfront from the beginning. All right, number 2, setting expectations around fundraising. Now, if fundraising might be several things. It might be literally asking for money. Like you require board members to go out and seek solicitations on their own. That's a little bit advanced, especially if they don't have any training, but it also might be connections. They need to give you names or refer you to people. It might be they have to give or get. Say everybody on the board is responsible for $1,500 a year or whatever. The reason we don't recommend the give or get strategy, we've seen this time and time again where we have a board who's not very engaged in philanthropy. They're not doing a great job fundraising. So the board chair will go through and set a giving minimum for everybody, saying, well, if everyone would just give $1,500, we have 10 seats, that's a guaranteed $15,000 we can make every year. That sounds pretty good, except for what that does is some people will have to super stretch to give $1,500, or they'll have to go and beg their neighbors, or they're feeling uncomfortable asking for this. And there will be some board members who can give way, way more than $1,500, and they're just going to default to that giving minimum. Maybe a couple of them give a little bit more, but if they feel like that's the expectation, they're going to give or get that exact minimum. So you end up with probably less than or exactly equal to that $15,000 for your 10 board seats. What we recommend to do instead is put in the language in your bylaws or in the board expectation, the orientation packet, to say specifically, each board member is required to give a meaningful gift. That's the language we put in there. And then it is the responsibility of the head of fundraising or the head of organization to have private, individual conversations with every single board member and making an ask that is appropriately scaled to their wealth, ability, income, connection, all of that. So everybody has to give. The language we use is meaningful gift, quote unquote. We put that in writing. And then we have individual conversations with each singular board member. If you take nothing else away from this video, please try that. This will be the biggest lever you can pull in terms of revenue specifically, and it really engages everybody to give their best gift. Oftentimes tough if you're not used to soliciting your board, or in many cases if the board is quote unquote your boss, if they're the ones who hired you, it can be a little bit intimidating. But for you to say, hey, this is best practice. This is how the best organizations do this. We have to have everyone bought in. There are grants you can't apply for unless all your board is giving. There are other grants you can't apply for unless your board is giving at a certain level. There's all these restrictions that you get by not having your board give. So if the fundraising piece is to give or get, we should at least say meaningful gift is the language we want to put in there. In addition to that, if you want your board to have so many referrals per quarter, we just want to talk about that. If you want your board to make actual solicitations, we want to talk about that. Our best advice, and what we've seen work the best, is kind of divide your board members up so they don't have to do necessarily this or necessarily this. Everyone has to give, but whatever role they feel like they play in the fundraising continuum that's helpful. Some will be great at giving names, some will be great at just being advocates and telling the story of the mission. Some are more comfortable going on asks, even if they're not the ones making the ask, just going with the fundraising director or the executive director with a donor, and that donor knows the board member. Huge, huge advantage to have one of their peers in the room. It just allows you to get a little more credibility. Like, they don't have to know your organization as well. They don't have to know you as a person as well. It is just the case that they trust the board member. They're friends with that board member, so they're much more likely to give with way fewer meetings. But whatever your expectations are around the fundraising piece, don't lie to them and be very, very clear, saying, hey y'all, this is a nonprofit board. Part of your deal here, part of the expectation of any nonprofit board is revenue generation. Here are the ways that we do that. We go through asking. If you don't want to do that, you can give us names, you can connect us to people, you can go on calls with us, but at a minimum, we'll be following up with each of you privately about your own contribution. And we want everyone to give a meaningful gift. And you just kind of lead by example, and after doing this for enough time, enough months, enough board cycles, it becomes the culture. And that's where we want to be with setting those fundraising expectations. Hey, thanks for checking out our video. If you're getting value out of this but would like something more personalized, you can book 30 minutes with one of our experts to see if you qualify for our support services. Link below in the description. Board training tip number 3 to get them engaged. Actually train them how to ask for money. And you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised, how many fundraising professionals have never, ever gotten any formal training on how to make an ask. I would say most people who end up in a fundraising job or fall into a fundraising career didn't do so by choice and by path. They didn't like go to college and be like, I'm gonna be a fundraiser. But for the most part, people kind of find their way into fundraising, and they're just kind of expected to learn on the job. They're not actually trained on how to do it. So if you think the staff struggle with getting trained, imagine how little information the board gets with way less exposure. So when you say, hey, there's an expectation that you do these things in fundraising, to actually spend some real time giving them materials, letting them practice on each other, doing some live solicitation practice, just letting them get a rep. When they say, yes, I'm very well-meaning and I do want to help, but I've never raised money before and I don't know how, I don't know what you want me to do, I don't know what you want me to say. And you say, great, we have a packet for that. We're gonna walk you through step by step. Here's how we raise money. Here's how you reach out to people. Here's some scripting for that. Here's a follow-up script. Here's a phone script, an email script. Okay, we're gonna practice saying this out loud. Okay, once you get someone in there, here's how you schedule a meeting to qualify a donor. Here's how you schedule a meeting for a solicitation. Here's what you say when you get to the solicitation meeting. All these things that fundraisers should know and should be trained on, and are many times not, are never given to the board. It's always just like, you're the board, go out and fundraise, you'll do it. And I bet if you're watching this, and that's what you've tried, or someone before you has tried in your organization, probably hasn't been very effective. Maybe you get a couple people who surprise you and do a great job, but I would imagine for the most part, you're gonna get most of your board not participating at a very high level. So just give them just the basic level of training. Probably will take you an hour to do this. You can have a one board session, or you extend one of your board meetings by an hour and say, hey, I know we've asked y'all to do this, but we really do need your help. But we're gonna give you the tools and the training and the reps and let you practice in a low stakes environment with each other and with the staff so that you understand how to pitch, what words to say, what not to say, and exactly how to do the thing that we're asking you to do. All right, strategy number 4 is to arm them with a ton of information about your mission. We often assume, especially for new board members, that they automatically know a lot about not just what we do, but how we do it. And they could very eloquently describe that to anyone in the community. It is not necessarily the case that they know the functions or how our staff works or how many volunteers or how many people we serve or all of the things that you know intimately because you're the staff person. But keep in mind, when you get 40 hours a week or maybe 160 hours a month of exposure to your organization, they might get 3. So that ratio is so vastly different. So we want to start with, again, first orientation, part of the recruitment process, and then also as an ongoing information drip. Don't assume they know everything about your mission. You want to give them all kinds of stuff. You want to give them processes. Here are the things we do and how we do them. Here are the different ways that we serve people. You want to talk about volume, how much work we do. What is the size of the population that we serve? What is the size of population we're trying to serve? Just kind of walking through the basic impact statistics that you have. Hey, we serve this percentage of this population in the following ways. Or maybe it's the problem. What's the problem that your organization solves? Like there's not enough shelters in town for this, and this. Or we're only able to serve 20% of the population here, so our goal is to scale that up so that anyone who needs access to services can do so for free. Whatever those tidbits of information are, the pieces that you use to sell your mission and your elevator pitches, just review them, just talk about them. The other thing you can do is instead of having to relay the information over and over, you can create just kind of a one-page impact statement or a one-page kind of case for support that's just like, hey, this is an introduction to our organization. This is who we serve, how we served them, how we got started, some of the impact that we've had so far, maybe some future plans on the impact that we might like to have in the coming years, or some of our goals for the year, so that without necessarily even going over that information, we can easily disseminate it out, have it on our website, and have the board members be experts. Our goal for the board, obviously, other than fundraising and expertise and strategy, is to be ambassadors in the community. And the best way for them to be ambassadors in the community is to have a very keen understanding of what we do and how we do it. So if you're not positive that your board has a keen understanding of what you do and how you do it, just arm them with just a little bit more information than you think. And even if you feel like you're repeating yourself, you probably are. It's pretty remarkable how many times someone needs to hear something before it really sinks in. So if you said something one time and just expect everyone to know it or remember it, it's probably not enough. So we just try to go a little bit extra on the information side. Strategy number 5. We want to treat them like donors for a couple reasons. First of all, hopefully they are actual donors. They are literal financial contributors to our campaign. Hopefully they are specifically donors, but they're also giving of their time. The amount of money someone has is extremely variable. Some people have a huge surplus of money, and for them to give away that money doesn't really change or impact their lifestyle. But we're all issued the same 24 hours of time every single day, no matter how rich or poor you are. Maybe you can buy back some of your time in certain ways, or you don't have kids, or you do. But for the most part, we're issued kind of the same amount of day each day. So for someone to give of their time, it's incredibly meaningful. People reserve their board service donors for their most favorite charities or their most favorite causes, usually. And because they're board members, we tend to kind of put them on the back seat of like, oh yeah, they're gonna keep showing up in it. We don't really need to steward them. We don't need to thank them. We don't need to recognize them because they're gonna show up anyways. Whereas this group of 8 or 10, 12 people, however many you have, are probably your best supporters in the entire community. And we need to almost put them on a bigger pedestal than our top donors. These are the people who are giving everything of their time, their effort and energy to help you, and we just tend to forget about them. So at a bare minimum, we need to be treating them like donors, and at a maximum, we can treat them better than donors. Here are some of the ways you can do that. First and easiest way is recognition among their peers. If someone does something great that you liked, they got a gift, they informed a new connection, they helped you with a new corporate sponsorship, they volunteered extra time, just acknowledge them during the board meeting. Put it on the agenda. Say, hey, big shout out to Jake. He was able to do this, this, and this for us. As a result of that, we have this thing now, or we were able to do these things now. We're so thankful, we're so excited. Just a big round of applause for Jake. Yay, everyone claps. Just that little moment, it costs you basically nothing. It costs you 15 seconds of time, and they are going to feel immensely proud. They're in a position where they've kind of gone out on a limb and given more of their time, more of their efforts, their energy, their dollars, whatever piece, and they just want to be thanked a little bit or to be shown that what they did was meaningful and impactful. And the best place to recognize them is kind of in a live setting among their own peers. Huge to have some level of recognition. In addition to that, external recognition. So listing them on your website, listing them on your annual reports, putting them in your email newsletter, doing a board member spotlight. These are all different pieces that are highlighting their service, and it's good to thank them in this way, but you're also just drawing attention to your program, saying, look at all the wonderful people who have already gotten on board, who've gotten excited about the things that we're doing right now. So we have that external recognition piece, we have the internal recognition piece, and then you as a person, you as a development staff or an executive director, just have stewardship touch points with them. That means taking them out for lunch occasionally, asking questions, following up to say thank you, handwritten cards, maybe a little board gift recognition item, something where you are personally reaching out and kind of formulating those relationships with that person, managing it the same way that you'd manage it with donors. But again, these are better than donors. These are your board members who are also donors and donors of their time and donors of their network and all the things that they do. So just don't let this lapse. Don't assume that just because they're a board member, you've already got them. We've already captured those people. We don't need to market to them anymore. We don't need to get them bought in on the mission anymore. They've already done that. Just don't forget they're your best supporters. All right, the sixth way to get your board super engaged, and we really love this one and have implemented a lot with a lot of our clients, not just as a board training technique, but just kind of as an ongoing thing that we do, and that is to share stories. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, facts tell, stories sell, where it's more effective to tell the story of one person that you've helped from start to finish than to say that you've helped 1,000 people with that same problem. We learn by story. We're wired for story. Our psychology compels us to learn through story. It kind of pulls on the emotional sides of our brain as well. So a lot of our organizations do what's called like a mission moment or something, where at every single board meeting, they share a specific story of a patient or an animal or a child or a family that they've helped in some way. Just like, hey, I know that y'all are in the trenches and we're talking about finances and structure and legal stuff, but there are real people on the other side of this work who are benefiting from all the wonderful things that we're doing. Let me tell you about one of them. And you don't have to even share a name if you can keep it anonymous, but to have a singular story, a new story to share at every single board meeting, especially if it's just quarterly, is hugely impactful. It just reminds them that like, oh yeah, this is kind of annoying and I had to leave my job across town to drive over here to this meeting, or I had to give up this time with my family or whatever. But it's worth it. It's worth it because we are making progress, and even if the organization isn't growing or the campaign's not going well, there's this person whose life is now better because of us sitting all here. So just reminding people of that, A, makes them feel great and keeps them super engaged, but B, it allows them to take those stories out into the community and share them with other people as well. You just gotta give them a bank. Now you can do this in a written form or you can just verbally tell it, but the more of these you do, the larger the growing bank of stories that you have and the more bought in they can be themselves and also share with others. So we really try to do a very pointed and specific job with sharing stories and having one ready at every single board meeting. And if you are orienting people for the first time or training a new round of board members, start with one. Say, hey, let me tell you really quickly about this guy that we helped, or this family that we helped, this child that we helped. Really impactful, really powerful. Give them a first name at least. Talk about the before, the during, and the after, using the classic storytelling structure where there's a rising action. They had this problem. We were able to intervene in this way, and now they're able to do this. Really, really powerful, and oftentimes, the most enjoyable part of any meeting. The seventh and final tip is to bring in outside help. Now, obviously, I'm biased because I feel like we do this pretty well as a firm. But even if you're not going to hire us, if you hire someone else or you hire someone local to your organization, just to bring an outside perspective or just to help facilitate from a non-board perspective. It's sometimes tough to have a perfect perspective or an exact idea of what needs to change or what needs to move, or just to kind of facilitate a discussion or to facilitate a board retreat. Or you're saying, I know that I need to train my board, but I don't know enough about fundraising myself to conduct a training. You can spend just a little bit of money and getting your board trained on some of these pieces, and then that investment will grow 10x, 100x, because now the board members are trained and empowered to do the things that you want them to do. Maybe even if they are excited about this and they're like, yes, I'm bought in on the idea of fundraising. I know we need to bring in money. I have no clue how to do this. And you yourself are thinking, well, I don't really know how to do this either. Sometimes it's super helpful to get a couple hours with an expert. Again, we could help with this, certainly, pridephilanthropy.com if you want to check it out. But there are other firms who do this. There are other people who do this. We're not the end-all be-all for board training. And just bringing in someone to help can be a huge game changer. Just to get a fresh perspective, a fresh start. It's not overly expensive. And even if it was expensive, say it was $10,000 for the day or something like that. So you brought in like an expert from your town who does it really well. Even if the board went and got one $10,000 gift in the next year, that will have paid for itself. But in theory, if they're all asking for half a dozen gifts of that size and you even get half of those, you could be in the six-figure plus range in revenue just for them knowing how to have done it. So definitely a worthwhile investment. We think so. Think about bringing in outside help. Okay, and one more bonus tip. I know there are 7, but we're just gonna call this bonus, is to do all this regularly. Say you have trained people and you've done a solicitation training, you've talked about stories, you've talked about the mission, you've armed them with information, you've got in the whole list and you've done it, and no new board members come in. Still great to do it all on kind of a regular, recurring basis. This kind of board development piece is not a one-time action that sets up your board for success forever. It is something that just kind of continually educates, continually trains, continually inspires them to do the next thing. So as you've tried a couple of these, that's great. What we recommend is kind of a best practice is to take some of these tips we've gone over today and just schedule them into your annual calendar. Say, hey, in the Q2 board meeting, we're going to do solicitation training and talk about asking for money. In the Q3, we're going to go deep dive on the last year's deliverables and financials and how we've been able to serve people so they have a very, very deep understanding of how our organization works operationally. In December, we're going to have them sign letters. Whatever that thing is that you do, just schedule it in. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do it all in one meeting. It's nice to have a board retreat and do a 2-day deal if you can, but if that's not in the cards for you, you can certainly spread it out, but just schedule it. Just do it all regularly, just get it on the calendar and get it scheduled. Hopefully this has given you some good insight on how to get your board trained, activated, and better serving your nonprofit. If you need additional help, we have lots of articles and videos on this over on our website, pridephilanthropy.com. We also may be able to help you directly. You can sign up to see if you qualify over there, and we'll see you in the next video.